What's up, guys? So today we're going to be going over the top 10 exotic weapons and armor pieces for next season. And both these lists will include things that will be becoming more popular next season. And what I mean by that is I'm not going to have like traversal steps for Warlock because those have been good since the beginning of time. I'm only including things that will be becoming good next season and I think will be used a lot more due to both the subclass changes and also the exotic changes themselves. And before the video begins, today is the last day my G Fuel code AIR is 30% off, so definitely make sure to order something if you want. Click the link in the comments and description, it'll take you over to the store and automatically apply my discount code. So let's go and begin. This is going to be kind of rapid fire because there's going to be 20 things to talk about in this video. So starting off with the exotic armor on Warlock, I think SUNBRACERS will be pretty good on the new top tree Dawnblade because it's going to revolve around heat rises, because it's going to be very easy to float forever, and with SUNBRACERS you have infinite melee and also infinite grenades, which works out really well. Then I have the Dawn Chorus, which will work extremely good on bottom tree Dawnblade. It already works really well for the super and makes it one of the best supers in the entire game for like total damage output and DPS, but now it seems like it's going to work a lot better with the way it's intended to work with the burns on bottom tree, with the way the rework will work, where pretty much every single time you apply a burn to a target, once you kill them they'll explode and reapply that burn to other enemies, and it'll kind of just spread over and over again. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. It's already one of my favorite builds and will be a lot better. Then up next will be NEZAREC'S, which has pretty much always been good on Warlock if you're playing a Void subclass, or really any subclass in general if you're using Void weapons. But I think this will be even better than ever with all the new Nova Warp buffs. When Nova Warp first came out, it was pretty much my favorite subclass ever in Destiny. I mained it all the time in PvE, but then they nerfed it obviously extremely heavy for PvP, and it became pretty much useless in PvE also. But now they're doubling the handheld supernova damage and almost doubling the Nova Warp damage itself. So I think that super will be extremely good, and that entire subclass will pair very nicely with NEZAREC'S next season. Up next will be the STORMDANCER'S Brace, which already gives you way more super damage. Every single time you get a kill while in your Stormcaller super, it will scale up the damage of the super itself. But now, depending on how many enemies you kill with the super itself, it will return up to 50% of your super, which will make it so you have that super way more often. And that super does all kinds of damage as is with this exotic and just the way the Stormcaller works now. So I think that will be a really good combo, and there'll be a lot of good builds to do with that exotic. Finally, the last one on Warlock will be VERITY'S Brow, because I think overall it's receiving a buff. They're making it work with matching elemental weapons to your subclass, which means you can use it with more than just your energy slot now. You can also use it with your power slot, and they're doubling the damage increase to your grenade you get all the way up to 100%. It will be kind of annoying out of the gate that you can't do it with Salvo and the Stasis turret build, but I'm sure as we get more of the Stasis weapons, there'll be some cool combos you can still do it with. Moving on to Titan, the only two I have down are both based on the throwing hammer on Middle Tree Solar. They're making it easier to pick it back up, making it last 10 seconds on the ground, which should make it easier to chain without losing your entire charge. Then they're also increasing its damage versus powerful PvE combatants by 50%. So once again, who knows exactly what they mean by powerful PvE combatants? I'm assuming majors and bosses, but I think they should just be a little bit more specific there. But anyways, with the right build and the right combos going on, this hammer already does crazy DPS with things like 1-2 punch. So adding 50% on top of that, I think that entire build will make both the WORMGOD crest and also the SYNTHOCEPS a lot more popular next season, because both are based on melee damage. And with all this going on, I definitely think Titan will be a pretty big DPS monster next season, just with the throwing hammer alone. And finally, moving on to the Hunter exotics. The first one is going to be RAIDEN FLUX, because of the fact that the Arcstrider subclass is getting all kinds of buffs, including duration of the super, and also 33% more damage in PvE. And RAIDEN FLUX obviously buffs your super damage, so that should be a good combo overall. Something that was very popular in vanilla and should be coming back. Then also, since Arcstaff is getting such a huge PvE buff, I think using Lucky Raspberry will be pretty popular too, because with Lucky Raspberry you'll be able to get infinite grenades on Arcstrider. And the final Hunter one I have down is the Bombardiers, which in my opinion were already pretty cool for some crazy builds, but now every single time you dodge, depending on which subclass, you'll get a special effect. And on Arc, which I think is the best way to use Bombardiers, because you can use top tree Arcstrider and have pretty much infinite dodges, what will happen is every single time you'll also blind the enemies, and depending on how big that radius is, I mean, that is crazy. Blinding is one of the most powerful things in the entire game, and being able to just, you know, blind and kill everything with just dodging constantly will be pretty crazy and could make this scene absolutely insane in PvE. And those are my 10 exotic armor pieces to look out for next season. Now moving on to the weapons. Once again, kind of rapid fire. First, looking at primaries, the first one I want to talk about is Vex. I think Vex will be one of the best primaries in PvE next season. Now I also have Bad Juju because there are all kinds of very powerful supers next season. For example, Arc Strider or even Nova Warp. And Bad Juju is a very good exotic primary and will get your super a lot quicker. Then finally, in the primary ammo type is Fighting Lion, just because of the fact that it will have infinite ammo and it is a GL. That should be pretty interesting. Then moving on to the special ammo types. First I have IZANAGI'S Burden, which hasn't necessarily been DPS meta in a few seasons, but I think it'll be back pairing it with rocket launchers and a lot of activities, really help increase your total damage output. So I think that could be a popular combo. Then we also have the WITHERHOARD for pretty much the same reason, to add DPS and also have really good ad clear. The next up we have the MERCILESS because it's receiving a buff. Pretty much what happens is as the rate of fire increases, right now the damage per shot goes down, but after this update the damage per shot should stay relatively the same, or at least not go down as much as it does currently, which should increase the DPS by quite a bit. So that could be really good for burst DPS and possibly even sustain DPS depending on how much of a buff it receives. Then finally, in the special ammo slot, I have the CLOUDSTRIKE. CLOUDSTRIKE was always really good for DPS for a special weapon, and with some of the best heavy options kind of getting lowered this season, I can definitely see that being a lot more popular again. And finally, in the power slot, I have the DEATHBRINGER because I think it's overall the best DPS, best sustained DPS, and best ad clear out of any power weapon. It is pretty much the best rocket launcher right now, so I think that'll be overall one of the most popular options next season. Then I also have the Sleeper and Whispered Worm, which will be pretty good for DPS and sustained DPS and really good for range. So I think both of those will be used a lot next season, especially the Sleeper. And that is pretty much it for all the weapons. I have a few other ones down as honorable mentions. First, the Huckleberry. The Huckleberry has always been good. I think it's one of the best SMGs in the game. The only one that might be better is the Taraba. So both of those could be extremely good options if you want to use exotic primary. Then I also have the Anarchy and Lament. I think both will be really good next season, but they're both already extremely good as is. And the point of this video was exotics that will become good next season, not already super good. And the final one on my list is the 1K. Depending on how it receives a few of the fusion buffs, it could be pretty good now. But as of right now, we just don't know enough information to know if that will happen or not. And yeah, anyways, that was my rapid fire list of top 10 exotic armor pieces and top 10 exotic weapons to look out for next season. Let me know what you think you'll be using next season, both weapon and armor wise. Anyways, thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.